Zubat has the dishonorable distinction of effectively being the worst Pokemon that you can legitimately beat the game of Pokemon Yellow with. Every weaker Pokemon than this cannot learn TM moves and basically doesn't even get a level up move. I mean, Magikarp gets Tackle, but that's nothing to write home about. But effectively, Zubat is the worst Pokemon that you can possibly do a solo challenge with. Not only does it rank 146 out of 151 Pokemon in terms of base stats with a meager 215 base stat total, none of its base stats are higher than 55, which is speed. Everything else here is just absolute trash. And the move pool is what really gets me. Of Pokemon that actually learn level up moves in TMs, this has to be the single most shallow move pool in the entire game. Leech Life, Supersonic, Bite, Confuse Ray, Wing Attack, and Haze. I mean, two of those moves, Supersonic and Confuse Ray, are basically the same thing, just Confuse Ray is more accurate, and Haze is a move that you'd basically never use in a solo challenge. It just makes no sense, which means that the only same type move that we can learn with this Pokemon is Wing Attack, and otherwise we're basically stuck with Bite. And while we can learn TM moves, we're talking about Razor Wind, which we've already seen is an absolute trash move, Takedown, which causes recoil, Mega Drain is our one chance at coverage, and Double Edge is at least a decent damage dealing move. But everything else here is basically either in my OP Broken TMs category or trash. So while it is possible to beat the game with a Zubat, it's absolutely terrible to do so. However, many of this Pokemon's moves were actually buffed in later generations. Leech Life, for example, went from being a 20 base power move in all of the early gens to being 80 base power in Gen 7. Wing Attack, which was basically just Peck in Gen 1, got buffed in Gen 2 to be 60 base power. Double Edge, which is effectively the best normal move that we can learn, got buffed to being 120 base power. And this got me wondering, if we used more modern powers for these moves, how much better would a Zubat be? Would it still be absolutely terrible to beat the game with this Pokemon, or would it go to actually being kind of serviceable as we go through a solo challenge? I decided to get into it and find out. So as we meet Professor Oak outside of Pallet Town, we're ready to do some research today on just how much better Zubat would be if its moves actually had a little bit of power behind them. Now, I'm not going to backport any moves or any new typings, so no, I'm not going to change Bite to be a dark type move here. That would actually just be a debuff to this Pokemon, given the fact that its special really isn't anything to write home about, but I will be buffing the power of Wing Attack and Leech Life in order to see if those two moves make this Pokemon significantly better. So we will get our Zubat, which is named Goodbat, who is coming in still with absolutely trash stats and is running on 0 DVs here, but it might not matter. We might be in a situation where at least for part of the game we can go on minimum battles. I don't know. It just depends on how good Leech Life actually is. So let's start off by fighting against the rival to start our research here, where he's going to lead off, of course, with his Eevee. He uses Tackle and does 6 damage, but then we use Leech Life and we heal back 3 HP there, having done 6 damage to him. And this is going to be a 4-hit KO with Leech Life, which is way stronger than usual. Normally, a Zubat has no chance of beating the rival there, but here we actually beat him really easily in the Rival 1 fight. So honestly, I don't know. This might turn out to be a situation where, like, I highly doubt we're going to beat the game on minimum battles or anything, but we might be able to at least look decent throughout the run. I will be taking extra battles whenever I hit a point that it seems like we're just, out of wall. If there's not a reasonable strategy that I can use to get through the opponent in front of me at my current level, and we will definitely be adding on the strongest moves available to this Pokemon. I plan to get Double Edge later on, even though it is trapped behind an optional trainer, just because I think we need to give every advantage that we can to Zubat if it's actually going to get through the game at anything less than level 100. Still, there are some massive benefits to the changes to this moveset. Obviously, if Wing Attack becomes 60 base power. That makes it effectively 90 base power in the hands of a flying type Pokemon, and Leech Life being effectively 80 base power actually makes it good against poison types, because remember, poison is weak against bug in this generation, and it makes it better against psychic types, one of our biggest weaknesses, because we actually have a strong move to use against them. For now, we have to fight against the bug catcher here in Viridian Forest, where he's got his Caterpie. He did massive damage with a critical hit tackle, but we're at least doing 5 damage per hit with our Leech Life here and slowly healing up. We don't really care about his string shots, and we're going to be able to knock him out nice and easy without taking any additional battles. So before I go grinding anything, I'm going to go straight to Brock and just see what this actually looks like. Maybe we can get through, maybe we can't. I'm honestly not sure, but it is worth an attempt either way. So Brock attempt number 1, we're coming in at level 6 because this is minimum battles. We are faster than the Geodude, and we managed to do 3 damage with our Leech Life. Unfortunately, his tackle did 10 damage back to us, so even after we heal 1 HP back with Leech Life, there's no way we're getting through that fight. We get completely wrecked. So it's pretty clear that we don't have any way to get through that. We're just going to have to grind some optional battles here, but it's still pretty impressive just to be able to get a Zubat to this point in the game without having taken any optional battles. So for now, what I'm going to do, I'm going to fight these other trainers in Viridian Forest, and I'm going to use damage rounding thresholds to determine when to go back and fight Brock again. Any level that ends in 0, 3, 5, or 8 boosts the amount of damage that you do to your opponents by just a little bit more than other levels. So we'll take our next attempt at level 8, and then if that doesn't work, at level 10, and just progressively go from there until we find a level where we can reliably beat Brocky Boy. A few other points about this one: this is not by any means like an optimized speed run. I haven't pre-routed this in any way, shape, or form, so I'm learning how this goes at the same time as you. I'm running on 0 DVs, and I will not be using any vitamins as we go through this one, just to keep things consistent with some of my other runs. I mean, we've already buffed this Pokemon massively. I don't think we need to go as hard as giving it max DVs and vitamins while we're at it. And I will be playing with animations on, because that's how I like to play. So now we're back at level 8. Let's see if we can beat Brock now. So back at level 8, Leech Life is now doing 4 damage per hit against the Geodude, so we'll heal 2 HP this time rather than just 1. Still, he appears to be doing about 10 damage per hit to us, so we easily get knocked out in 3 hits. So that's clearly not enough to actually get this one to go. So now at level 10, we've just gotten access to Supersonic, which does, at least in theory, give us another way to get through this. So I'm going to come back and try Brock and just see how he goes. So now against Brock, the strategy is to try to land Supersonic. We're going to have to actually get it to land in spite of the fact that it's only 55% accurate. And our hope is that he will hit himself in confusion, doing damage, but also giving us an additional turn in order to heal up. At this point, we're now doing 6 damage per hit with Leech Life against the Geodude, so we're healing back 3 HP every time that we actually manage to land the move, and that allows us to get through Geodude at this level. Now against the Onix, I think the strategy is the same, that we need to confuse this Pokemon, and of course, while he's using Bide, we will just use Supersonic on him anyway. He did 6 damage with his tackle, and then our critical hit from Leech Life only did 5 damage here. Still, we can get him to hit himself in confusion, and we're getting to heal up a little bit of HP, so this is at least looking a lot closer at this point. Still not consistent, so we're gonna try to get up to level 13 to come back and fight this one again, but it's kind of nice to see that we can in fact beat the first Geodude. Now, because we need more XP, I am going to come and fight Rival 1A. This will actually make this run harder if I beat him, because he'll have the Jolteon team, which would mean that his ace is using super effective moves against Zubat. If instead we went up against the Flareon team, the actual final Flareon will never attack a poison type Pokemon, So this is actually not just for XP here, but also to make the end game more difficult. So here against the Spearow, we absolutely need to confuse this Pokemon because we're not going to do that much damage, I don't think, with our Leech Life. Actually, we're doing significantly more than I expected. This looks like a 5-hit KO. He does growl at us though, which is kind of bad. Still, against the Eevee, we get a nice critical hit that takes it all the way down to 8 HP with our first hit. And as long as we can land 2 more, we actually beat Rival 1A on the first attempt with no difficulties whatsoever. That's actually pretty surprising to me, but it shows just how much better this Zubat is at this point than it normally would be. I wouldn't expect a level 12 Zubat to be able to beat his team, especially with the Spearow as his lead, but hey, it worked. So now we have fought all of the trainers before Brock. We've even beaten the Light Years Junior trainer. So I think the only thing that we can do is just grind against the Geodude until we manage to get another level, or maybe at this level we just manage to get through. We'll just have to see. So Brocky Boy attempt at level 12. We can see that he's doing pretty decent damage to us still, and we're not doing that much, so we're definitely going to need to confuse him. We get a nice tackle miss there, then he hits himself in confusion. So now we're getting through to the Onix on green health as we level up to level 13. Here we manage to confuse the Onix, and we're going to go into our Leech Life, which is still doing 5 damage per hit here. Still, he hits himself in confusion a couple times. We're gradually healing up off of him, and he goes down at level 13. So it turns out that Zubat wasn't too bad there. I mean, 14 minutes to beat Brock with a Zubat is really not bad at all, especially considering I'm not fighting wild Pokemon. I'm only fighting trainers. It took 8 optional battles to get through that. The couple resets were just because I was testing things out. But yeah, that is 1 gym leader done at a significantly lower level than what I think is normal. I'm pretty sure in a normal run, you're grinding levels until Bite at level 15 at the very least. So definitely a massive improvement. Now we can move on in this next section where Leech Life is at least strong enough for now to get through these trainers. There aren't any flying types until we get to rival number 2, so we should be able to do just fine with Leech Life, plus we'll get access to Bite pretty soon here. So we'll have at least a couple moves to use in our battles once we get to Cerulean City. So I'm going to stick as close to minimum battles as I can in this section, rather than just taking every battle that's available to me. We'll take optional battles again when we hit a wall, but for now, I just want to see if we can get through things at our current level. I'd rather not sit here and grind levels and just be over-leveled for everything, so let's just test this out. Maybe at this point, Leech Life is okay. I mean, the only reason we struggled against Brock, it was because A, he was at a higher level, and B, he had really good defense on his Pokemon. Here, against this Super Nerd on the other hand, I think this is going to be just fine. He leads off with the Grimer, and Leech Life is super effective against poison types in Gen 1 because, you know, Bug is super effective against poison for some reason. So we easily two-shot that Pokemon. Out next comes the Voltorb. It goes Tackle. Leech Life is doing massive damage here. We get to level 16 as the Coughing comes out, and this Pokemon is also weak against Leech Life, so we get an easy 2-hit KO victory. Now we can pick up the Dome Fossil because it is the better fossil, of course, and we're ready to go take on Jesse and James. They lead off with Ekans, and I'm just going to go for the Leech Life. This is a 2-hit KO on this Pokemon. Out next is Meowth. We can Leech Life after it bites us, and then it gets a critical hit bite. That was terrible, but we survived the scratch, so we managed to get through to the Coughing at level 17. Leech Life does half, and we don't care about Smog. Come on, we just two-shot that Pokemon, and we actually managed to get through Jesse and James in spite of the fact that we nearly got KO'd by the Meowth, just because Leech Life is so much stronger and is healing so much more HP. So now the question is, how do we want to route at this point? We could go fight against our rival. We could go try Misty. I'm going to try going to Misty one time just because I'm really interested to see how a super effective Leech Life does against the Starmie. Like, I fully expect that we're probably going to have to use some supersonic strats together with our Leech Life, but who knows? This might just be possible at our current level. Let's find out. So Misty leads off with Staryu. I'm just going to go for Leech Life here. We did about a quarter. We definitely took a lot of damage from Water Gun though, showing just how bad our special stat is. But we do manage to get through the first Pokemon and get to level 18. Now she X defense on her Starmie, but we did massive damage with a crit, taking it down to yellow health and healing back a bunch of HP. Still, Bubble Beam is just way too strong and we get completely destroyed there. So clearly Misty is not really happening at our current level without at least a lot of confusion luck. So I'm gonna just leave that one alone. Let's go instead trying to fight against our rival. So rival number 2, attempt number 1, we're gonna go Bite on the Spearow since we need a neutrally effective move. Bite is looking like a 4-hit KO here. We do manage to knock that Pokemon out. I'm gonna switch to Leech Life against the Sandshrew, just because otherwise we're not going to have enough HP, I don't think. This appears to be a 4-hit KO and we're getting on very low health. Rattata just destroys us with Hyper Fang. I'm going to take one reset here just to see if we can get a better range, but otherwise we may need to adjust by grinding some additional levels here. So I think we might actually need to use Supersonic on the first Spearow, hoping that it hits itself in confusion. Otherwise, we're not really going to have a chance. And outside of that first attempt, I haven't even seen past the Spearow, so I don't think that one's really going. Let's instead go back to Misty and try a little bit with Supersonic strats just to see if we can manage to get through. So in this one, I'm going to use Supersonic on the Staryu first. It hits itself in confusion turn 2, then she X defense. I think that's perfectly fine. We just want to be able to heal up some damage and take a little less damage from that Staryu. Now against the Starmie, I'm going to try to confuse this Pokemon as well. Sure enough, I do. It hits itself in confusion turn 1, and now we're able to start using Leech Life as it just keeps hitting itself in confusion. This is exactly what we wanted. She Bubble Beams and takes us down to 3 HP, but then we do knock her out on the second attempt. So 21 minutes and 53 seconds to get through Misty, but we did in fact get the job done. And that of course also gained us a couple levels, so maybe we're a little bit better now against the rival. Let's just see if this fight is winnable now. Here we're definitely a little bit better. We're nearly getting a 3-hit KO there on the Spearow. And now we can go into Leech Life on the Sandshrew. It manages to sand attack us once though and makes it so that we can't hit anything. Still, I think that we actually have a chance here. This time we get through Spearow with no damage whatsoever. We could technically stick with Bite here on the Sandshrew trying to flinch it. He just starts setting up tons and tons of sand attacks though, which is not what we wanted to see. So once again, we get knocked out by a critical hit from the Rattata. This time we get through the Sandshrew with much better health and only one sand attack, and it looks like Rattata is going to be a 2-hit KO from Leech Life, so we do manage to take it out. Now we're to the final Eevee where a critical hit took it down to half health, so we just need to land one more hit here in order to win, and instead we get the miss and then he crits to knock us out. So this is clearly a winnable fight. It's just not a very pretty looking fight. I'm going to give it just one more attempt, and then if this is still not working, we may even need to go ahead and just take XP and faint. But here we don't even get that option because the first Spearow gets a critical hit Fury attack. And in Gen 1 only, when you crit a multi-hit move, it crits every single hit of that move. Next attempt, we get knocked out though, so I'm just going to keep the XP and just grind this one because technically we would want to get to level 20 for our next damage rounding threshold. And no matter what we do, we're going to be slower than the Spearow for a couple more levels at least. Really, we need to reach a point where we have at least 33 speed in order to match this Spearow, and at that point maybe Bite strats can allow us to get some flinches, etc., making this one more consistent. Against Sandshrew, we're actually really rooting for it to just use Scratch like this one. That's going to allow us to at least get through with our accuracy intact. And that allows us to get through the Rattata. We're to the final Eevee where we get a nice critical hit. It goes Growl, which is not really what we wanted to see, but then it misses the sand attack. So at level 20, getting to level 21 at the end, we did in fact manage to beat the rival, and we learned Confuse Ray. So now when we want to confuse opponents, we have a 100% accurate way to do that. So it's not really pretty. On minimum battles, you would be getting to level 21 after going up to Bill's house typically, but hey, we're not that far behind, at least at this point. It may get worse as we go further and further into the run though. Still, for now, I think our moveset is more than strong enough to get through all these rando trainers across the Nugget Bridge. So let's just make our way straight up to Billy Boy's house and see if he likes our idea about experimenting with the Zubat. And sure enough, we have no issues whatsoever getting to Billy Boy's house. So we're just going to walk in and give him a little thank you for the fact that he made the time capsule and theoretically would make this possible to have these future improvements on our Zubat. Clearly, that's what he's been teleporting back and forth back here. So, yeah, it's clearly him that sent that Zubat over to Pallet Town so that we could use it. But now with that done, it's time to make our way down to rival number 3. We're going to be fairly over-leveled for that fight. Like, you usually come in over-leveled anyway, but we're going to be extra over-leveled here. Fortunately, the innocent bystander, even with his drowsy, couldn't do enough damage with confusion to stop our good bat here. So we're going to be able to make our way down south and hopefully beat the rival nice and easy. I'm going to also attempt Lieutenant Surge one time as soon as he's possible, though it's fairly unlikely that we're actually going to beat him on the first attempt. I just want to see what the ranges currently look like at the level when we get there. And there are a ton of optional trainers down here to fight, but before we would fight any of them, we would go through the rock tunnel because there are plenty of required trainers that we could battle in order to get extra XP before we actually have to come back to Surge. Now, if we struggle against the rival, then we might have to think about taking some optional battles just because there really is no other option if he's actually hard. We can see that Bite isn't like one-shotting here against random flying types, and we are taking a lot of damage due to the fact that we have basically no defense. So this one is really kind of up in the air. Still, we won't know until we actually try it, so let's just pick up a couple items that we need and make our way straight to rival number 3. So rival 3 attempt number 1, I'm going to go Bite here on the Spearow. This is a 3-hit KO. We just don't quite get the range. Now we'll switch to Leech Life on Rattata and a critical hit one-shots there. We'll stick with the Leech Life on the Sandshrew as well. This one looks like it's going to be more like a 5-hit KO normally, and he uses a potion. Now I think we need to confuse this Pokemon. It does hit itself once in confusion, but it's just using a lot of sand attacks on us. So we do manage to knock it out and get to level 25, but this isn't looking great. We do confuse the Eevee, fortunately, but then it manages to land a growl on us. So we're struggling with accuracy, plus the fact that we can't actually deal as much damage. So we lose the first attempt to the rival. This could just be an issue of getting so many sand attacks. So I'm going to try one more time. Maybe confusion strats and flinch strats are the way to go against Sandshrew. So I'm not going to mess around. I'm going to go straight for Confuse Ray this time. It misses a sand attack, which is very nice, but then Slash completely ends us. So I think we actually should take some optional battles now. I'm going to lead off by getting access to the rare candy here. And yeah, we may just need to get a little bit stronger before this fight is actually reasonable. And here this gentleman actually completely wrecks our Zubat with his Ponyta after getting the burn. So I'm going to take another reset here because that's kind of bad luck to get burned there, but there's not really anything we can do about that. Fortunately, we managed to beat him on the next attempt, but yeah, some of this run really is not looking very pretty. So here at level 28, we get to learn another new move, Wing Attack. Effectively now our strongest move since it is same type and 60 base power in this version. Now the other thing you'll notice, I've just fought this Sailor right here, which would normally mean I can pick up Rest, but Rest is on my OPTMs list, so we will not be using that move in this run. In fact, if I make any moveset changes from here on out, honestly, it's just going to be slamming on Double Edge over Bite or maybe Mega Drain if we really need it at some point. But otherwise, this is our moveset running through the rest of the game. So here at level 28, let's come back and try the rival again and just see if we can manage the victory. So I'm going to lead off with Wing Attack here. It nearly one-shots against the Spearow and we knock it out the next turn. Now Wing Attack completely destroys the Rattata. Wing Attack on the Sandshrew looks to be a 3-hit KO and he slashes us down. So we're still going to need to go for some confusion in there on that Sandshrew in order to actually get through it, I think. This time he potions on his Spearow, so we knock that one out without any damage, and then Rattata still goes down nice and easy. I'm going to confuse the Sandshrew. It goes Slash. but now we can go wing attack. It snaps out of confusion like immediately. I'm going to go into leech life just to recover some HP. Now on Eevee, wing attack does over half and we knock it out the next turn. So just like that, we do manage to get through with our Zubat. It's not super pretty. We are pretty massively over leveled at this point at level 28, but hey, we'll take it. We have gotten through this without actually too much difficulty. So we're up to 20 optional battles at this point, but we are in a position where we might just be able to actually, pose some sort of threat to Lieutenant Surge. So let's get into this and just see how it actually goes. So after digging through the trash man's trash, we're going to see if he's really trash today by bringing a flying Pokemon that has basically no special against him. So Surgy Boy, attempt number 1, he leads off with his Raichu. We're at exactly the same level as this Pokemon. Obviously, we're significantly slower though. I think we need to confuse it to have any shot. Now I'm going to go into Leech Life since it is our strongest move against him effectively. And we've gotten him down to orange health after he hit himself once in confusion. Now he goes Mega Kick though, and the critical hit just one-shots us. So if he's taking us out with a Mega Kick, we're probably not surviving, but I do want to see if it was only because of the crit that he KO'd us. Here, a non-crit Mega Kick leaves us with 2 HP remaining, so it's pretty clear that in any reasonable setup, we're just not going to win this fight. So we now know that we cannot beat a trash man, and we're going to have to go and try to take on something else instead. So let's go through the rock tunnel, gain a few levels, and we'll come back and fight against Lieutenant Surge later on, ideally when we're actually faster than his Raichu. And now I did heal in Vermilion just because I was taking optional battles there. Normally I would not heal in Vermilion and just dig back to Cerulean City, but in this case we did not have that option. Still, fortunately, as we make our way to the rock tunnel, we've got to deal with things like the Wrapping Glass, but here Leech Life or Wing Attack should just completely destroy these grass type Pokemon. That means that Erika is probably going to be one of the easiest trainers in the entire game as far as bosses go, and we may be able to get her badge before we come back and fight against Lieutenant Surge. Here I ran into an optional trainer, so I'm just going to go ahead and fight her because I don't want to go back to the last save and take another reset. But outside of that, we shouldn't actually need any optional battles in this section unless we struggle against the Rock Tunnel Hiker. But looking at our moveset right now, it's kind of interesting to see that we're in a situation where we shouldn't really struggle all that hard against the next couple of gym leaders. In theory, at least, we have really good stab against Erika, now that Wing Attack is actually a proper power. Leech Life being super effective against Sabrina might actually make her fight significantly easier. And we have super effective moves against Koga because he's basically a bug type trainer in this version. So I have a lot of confidence that we're going to get through the next couple gyms nice and easy. So we might not even need to come back and fight Lieutenant Surge until basically we're most of the way through the mid game. That's just my theory at least. We'll see if it actually works. But for now, we've made it to the self-destruct hiker in Rock Tunnel. Let's see if we can actually manage to win. I'm going to confuse him first because Rock Throw will do a lot of damage, but we are going to be able to get through this Geodude, it looks like, until he self-destructs and completely destroys us. Normally, you would have a badge boost in defense from Lieutenant Surge, which would put in some work here. Unfortunately, we do not have that, so we're going to have to get a little bit of luck to get through this section. Next attempt, we do get through the first Geodude, only to get Rock Throw from the second Geodude. Then it defense curls though, so that allows us to gain back a little more HP. We can confuse the Graveler, but Rock Throw is just too much, so we go down. So this fight is definitely not looking very good. We're going to have to go and fight against some other trainers to gain more XP. So now at level 33, I'm going to come back and try this Rock Tunnel Hiker again, just because we have a little more HP and obviously defense. But I think this fight really just comes down to his move choice. If he uses the wrong moves against us, it's not a difficult win. But if he uses the right moves against us, we get completely destroyed. This time we get to the Graveler on pretty good health. Then it goes self-destruct though, and there's nothing we can do against that move. Now I will take the reset here because I don't want to get through him just because he's self-destructed. Keep in mind, I do have Charmander as an HM Pokemon, so technically I could just let him blow up with his last Pokemon and just just move on, but I feel like that's super cheap, so I'm not going to do that. So now back at level 35, we've cleared out everything in the rock tunnel, and we even had to start backtracking down towards Vermilion to fight more trainers in order to get to this level. So let's see if it actually works now against this rock tunnel hiker. We get to the Graveler on full health this time, no damage taken from either of the Geodudes. We just need to deal enough damage to actually knock this Pokemon out. One more hit and we do get the job done. As long as we don't get self-destruct there, we're good to go. And now we can make our way out of this section. We're really getting massively over leveled at level 35. So I don't know, we may still end up being at a ridiculous level to beat the game with his 0 DV Zubat, but you know, we'll just have to see. But now that we've made it through that section, I think the only good play is to go and take on Erika right away. Not only do we have a massive type advantage with our moves, but we also resist her best moves. So I think we're going to be just fine getting through this, but let's just see if we can actually beat her nice and easy or if there's any actual challenge here. Now we could learn Haze at level 36 here, but we will not learn this move. And with that being skipped, we now have no additional level up moves on this Pokemon. Just at level 36, you're already capped out with nothing new to learn other than TMs, which is kind of ridiculous if we're being honest. Anyway, we've made it to Erika, so let's just see if we beat her on the first attempt. So Erika, attempt number 1, I'm just going to go wing attack on the Tangela. It's going to be a 2-hit after a critical hit there. Next, we've got the Weepin' Bell. Leech Life is 4 times super effective, so it's technically the stronger move. We get the 1-hit KO. And Gloom, we go Leech Life and completely destroy that Pokemon. Turns out that Leech Life being 80 base power is kind of OP against Erika. So we beat her in 59 minutes, 22 seconds. We were over leveled. We've taken 41 optional battles now. But we did, in fact, manage to get through another gym. It only took like nearly 40 minutes since we beat Misty to get through that. But hey, you know, it's kind of par for the course. You could definitely get this a lot faster by just fighting everything, not backtracking like I was doing. But, you know, I want to avoid being over leveled if I possibly can. Though with this Pokemon, it's basically going to be impossible to beat the game at any sort of reasonable level. Still, undeniably, it is a better range than we would normally get with a Zubat, so I can't complain too much at this point. And with Erika defeated, we can do a little bit of housekeeping like opening up Saffron City, and then it's on to the Rocket Hideout, where I think we're probably going to need the levels here. We'll just see how it actually goes though. I'm planning to save the rare candies until the Elite Four just because I think I'm probably going to need them in this one. So for now, I'm just going to run with my Pokemon as it is, and if I struggle, I'm still just going to be taking optional battles in order to level up. It may turn out to be a mistake, but like I said, I don't pre-route these runs, so I honestly don't know what level I need to be at a certain fight or anything like that. So it's usually a best practice to just keep the rare candies in the bag until you get to the league, because that's usually when you have the biggest difficulty jump in Pokemon Yellow. Like in my experience, even a Mewtwo needs to go to using rare candies when it gets to Lorelei in order to beat the game on minimum battles. Everything up to that point though is actually fairly easy to get through, so it can obviously depend on the Pokemon. There have been cases where I've found, for example, at Blaine or at Koga was the right time to use rare candies, but I would only know that after having done the run a couple times and knowing exactly what the ranges were. And I highly doubt that I'm going to be coming back to do a second run with this Zubat. If we do another one, it's probably just going to be a normal Zubat, and that one's going to be far more painful than this. So here against Jesse and James, of course, Leech Life will just destroy the coughing. Against the Meowth, I will switch into Wing Attack since it's my strongest move. We knock it out in 2 hits, and now the Ekans gets completely destroyed by Leech Life. We are ready to make our way to Giovanni. Now, Giovanni leads off with his Onix. The only play here is to go Leech Life. He goes Rock Throw. He has Smart AI, so we are going to want to confuse this Onix if we can. He guards Specs and then knocks himself out with hitting himself in confusion. So very nice, we get through that Pokemon. Now the Rhyhorn, I'm going to confuse it and then go into the Leech Life here as well. I think we just need to heal up as much HP as possible. After knocking that one out, we get to the Persian where Wing Attack is definitely the play. He growls, which is actually really good good strategy from him. But then we get a crit to just knock him out because, you know, Gen 1, crits ignore stat drops. So Giovanni, smart as he was trying to be, got kind of messed up by the way that Gen 1 works. I, of course, am not going to apologize for Gen 1 being Gen 1. Instead, let's just move on to Lavender and go fight rival number 4. So rival 4 attempt number 1, I'm going to lead off with the wing attack against this Fearow. It gets a critical hit Fury attack on us, but we knock it out the next turn, so I think that's just fine. I am going to use Leech Life on the Shelter, just trying to recover some HP. Got me in a clamp, but Leech Life did 2-hit KO that Pokemon. Now on Vulpix, let's go wing attack. We get a nice, easy one-hitter, and we can go back to the wing attack on Sandshrew. Once we get it to low health, Leech Life just to get a little HP back, and finally wing attack on the Eevee looks to be a 2-hit KO, allowing us to get the nice, easy victory. I expect it to be the last easy victory against the rival though, given that he is running the Jolteon team. He's going to have a lot of speed and super effective moves with his ace, so that could be rough. Still, after getting through that, we should have no issues with these channelers, since for some reason, wing attack can hit ghosts. You know, the fact that it is a physical move is obviously good, but I don't understand why you couldn't tackle a ghost, but you can hit it with your wing. Somebody needs to tell me in the comments down below. But without further ado, we have made it to Ghosty Mama, and she doesn't really have anything good to use against us because Bone Club can't affect us as a flying type Pokemon, so we're just gonna wing attack here. Headbutt did actually do pretty decent damage, but after that we simply destroy her with 4 wing attacks. We're on to Jesse and James, where in theory we have a super effective move in Leech Life for 2 of their Pokemon, so this should be fine, I think, but let's find out. First up, of course, they have the Meowth. I'm going wing attack. We don't quite get the one hitter, so I'll use Leech Life just to finish that one off. Arbok's out next. Leech Life nearly gets the 1-hit KO. Then we get Glare, but we knock it out easily the next turn. And then Weezing knows Tackle, Smog, and Sludge. We resist the poison moves, so I think we're going to be just fine here with our Leech Life doing about half damage. Sludge actually did a lot more than I expected. Still, it was just a 2-hit KO to knock that Pokemon out, so we can save Mr. Fuji. He's going to see our Zubat and think that we must be with Team Rocket, but after we explain the situation for him, he's going to try to give us a flute, only to find that we have no room in our inventory. So let's just sell some items really quickly. I find it very interesting that this old man, he's like, here, have a flute. Wait, you have no space for this flute. How do you know? Have you been going through my bag? Clearly, he's a bit nosier than I think anybody had anticipated. Still, after getting access to the Poke Flute, we can move on in the game. And we have one major issue in this next section, which is that if we go and try to take on Koga, yes, we have super effective moves, but in this version, he is using psychic moves with his Venonats and Venomoth. So if we're not one-shotting there, we could actually be in really big trouble. So I'm just going to fight the rando trainers that are required first, and then I think we should go at least try Lieutenant Surge one more time. So let's just try Lieutenant Surge attempt number 2. We're coming in 11 levels higher than his Raichu, so if we can't beat him now, it's actually pretty embarrassing. Of course, Raichu is still faster than us, so I'm going to use Confuse Ray to confuse this Pokemon as he X speeds. He just wasted his first turn. And now let's go for the Leech Life, which does well over half, and he goes Growl against us. So we get him all the way down to 1 HP, then he Mega Punches, and we of course survive, even a crit there, allowing us to knock him out. If he had gone for Thunderbolt, I'm pretty sure we die, but he's not smart enough to do that because he is of course a trash man. So now we're 10 minutes to get through Lieutenant Surge. That is our 4th gym badge, and we're ready to move on in the game. Now I'm going to go ahead and take this opportunity to now use Fly, and we'll make our way down to Koga's gym just to test him out, and if we run into any issues, we'll start thinking about where else to go. Probably the Fighting Dojo, because none of those Pokemon can really do anything to our little Zubat. Now, fortunately, against the randos in Koga's gym, we have a super effective move in Leech Life, and in this case, Leech Life is actually really strong, so we can just one-shot things like a Drowsy here. Granted, we are also 9 levels higher. It turns out, though, that that's a range, and then Confusion from Kadabra just completely destroyed us in a single hit. Fortunately, when he just goes recover with Kadabra, we easily knock it out in a single leech life, and that allows us to beat the first juggler on the second attempt. Still, that doesn't give me a whole lot of confidence that we're going to be very good here. We're just going to have to see. Still, at level 41, we have made it to Koga, so let's just test this one out. I highly doubt we're going to beat him due to his psychic type moves. If we fail, then the next step is to go try our hand at rival number 5. He's probably impossible too, if I have to guess, but I'm going to verify that they're impossible before I start grinding a bunch of optional battles in order to level up. First things first though, let's test out Koga. I'm going for wing attack since it's a same type move and super effective, and it does not manage to one-shot the first Venonat. We did survive a psychic, so that's I guess kind of fine, but the fact that we're not going to be one-shotting these Venonats basically means that this fight is impossible. I'm pretty sure the only way we get through is if we sweep through the 3 Venonats so that we get to the Venomoth on full health, and then we're kind of hoping that he goes for like an X attack there. Otherwise, I think that one's basically impossible to get through. So let's just try our rival once just to see what he looks like. He might be completely impossible for all I know, but it's worth at least one attempt here. First up, we have the Sand Slash. I'm going to confuse this Pokemon, and he was faster and Sand attacked us, so we're already off to an amazing start. And Leech Life did basically nothing. Wing Attack also does basically nothing here. So yeah, this is basically looking impossible. We do manage to get through the first Pokemon though, and that does bring us to the Ninetales, only to get completely destroyed by Ember. So yet again, not a fight that looks like it's gonna go. I think we have to go fight some optional trainers. So I'm going to lead off by just fighting against the Fighting Dojo, just because I think these trainers will actually be quite easy, and we've got a super effective move in Wing Attack here, so let's just see how they actually go. And of course, it turns out that our super effective Wing Attack is not one-shotting here, so we're actually taking decent amounts of damage from a lot of these trainers. Still, we do manage to make it to the Dojo Master, so let's just see how this fight goes. He of course leads off with his Hitmonlee. He X attacks turn 1. We nearly took it down, and then he X attacks again. Good job. So we easily knock out his best Pokemon. Now it's on to the Hitmonchan. Comet Punch with a critical hit does massive damage, but then it goes Agility, allowing us to just get the win and get to level 43. So maybe now we can actually knock out those Venonats with Wing Attack. We'll just have to see. But for now, I'm going to take his Hitmonlee in order to just stunt on the dojo here before going back to Koga. You know, we may not be able to beat a ninja, but we definitely can beat a black belt. So, you know, we've got something. So Koga attempt number 2. Let's just see how this Venonat goes now. We go Wing Attack, and yeah, a non-critical hit doesn't even get anywhere close to a one-hit KO here. So yeah, we're getting completely destroyed still. The one where we nearly one-shot that Pokemon must have been a crit, and I didn't realize because this is nowhere near the range that we would need to one-shot here. So I think we have to give up on that one. Let's take more optional battles. Now honestly, this run might be worth coming back in Pokemon Red and Blue to try again, since in that version we would probably have a significantly easier Koga fight that might actually make this Pokemon get through at least on a significantly lower level than what it's going to take to get through here. Pokemon Yellow effectively having 2 Psychic type trainers as gym leaders is definitely a spot that makes these poison types much harder in this version of the game. So now at level 50, I'm ready to go back and try Koga again, and let's see if we get better ranges. We're definitely faster than all the Venonats. That shouldn't be the issue. It's just about how much damage we can actually deal. So here we'll try Wing Attack. We are getting it down to nice low red health, and then we take a critical hit Psychic that also lowers our special, so not much chance there, and we get destroyed by the next Pokemon. So still not quite enough. We're going to need to gain a few more levels to get that one to go. I'm going to go back and try the rival now as well, just to see how he goes, because we should be faster than that Sand Slash, and maybe that helps our ranges a little bit here. So here we'll use Confuse Ray first, just trying to get it to maybe hit itself in confusion. Instead, of course, it goes Sand Attack and then into Slash, and we're just getting destroyed in 2 hits there once it snaps out of confusion. So clearly not looking very good. So now back to Koga at level 53. 3 wing attack now just barely misses the range to one-shot. If we gained one more level, we may be able to just get the one-hit KO on the first Venonat. We actually get the range to one-hit KO the second Venonat. Now the third Venonat goes down. This is all due to the special drop that we took from the first Pokemon, boosting our attack stat. We've made it to the Venomoth, though we are slower, of course. So it goes Psychic and we get completely destroyed here. We would need an X attack from this Pokemon, I think, to have any shot of getting through. So that fight's still clearly not happening. We're going to have to go grind even more levels. So now after nearly 100 optional battles, we've made it to level 55. Let's try Koga again at this point. So now at level 55, Wing Attack does get the one-hit KO on the first Venonat. It gets the KO on the second Venonat. Third Venonat just barely survives. It is, of course, 4 levels higher than the first Venonat. So yeah. Now we get to the Venomoth, but on fairly low health, and we will need the X attack. He goes X attack turn 1. That was insanely lucky, and then he X attacks turn 2. Wing attack did well over half, and then he hits himself in confusion, so we actually beat him at this level. That was ridiculous, but that was purely because of him being dumb and using X attacks when he's then going to use Psychic against us. We'll take it, but yeah, 96 optional battles to get to this point, and 28 resets. I mean, the resets are all just for me testing out things, so you can kind of disregard those, but the 96 optional battles, there's no way around it. We had to grind a bunch, and it's still technically not consistent there. We would need to take even more battles to make that one truly reasonable. Still, we have managed to get through Koga, so I guess we'll move on in the game for now. That gives us a nice badge boost in speed, and we could technically go and try to take on Blaine, just because, of course, his AI is completely random in Pokemon Yellow, so who knows? Maybe that's the best strategy for us to progress in the game. So before we go back and try the rival again, I'm just going to try Blaine once and just see how he goes, because the badge boost in special could really help us here. Now, of course, if Zubat could learn TM28 Tombstoner, it would beat the game in like 25 minutes with no resets or optional battles, because it would be impossible to lose with that move. But here we're going to have to actually get a fair amount of luck, I think, to beat Blaine. Still, let's get into it and test this out. So Blaine attempt number 1 against this Ninetales. I'm just going to go Confuse Ray first, trying to get it to hopefully hit itself in confusion. Then we can go into our Wing Attack, which doesn't really do that much. Still, we should be able to get through this first Pokemon as long as we don't get terrible luck or Flamethrower like that. So clearly Blaine's not really gonna happen at this point. We are just way too weak in terms of special, so we just get rocked the second he actually uses a fire type move. Still, I tried one more time just because I misclicked, and I actually managed to knock out the Ninetales this time. We get a takedown miss from the Rapidash, and it hits itself in confusion the next turn. Then it misses a Growl. Stomp did massive damage though, and we got flinched. So yeah, definitely not happening. So here, let's just test if we can actually get through rival number 5, but if he's not working, which I highly doubt he will, we're just gonna have to take even more optional battles. So here against the rival, of course, Confuse Ray on the Sandslash first. It goes Slash this time. I'm going to use Leech Life to try to get some HP back, since it looks like this move is about a 4-hit KO. And of course, he just destroys me with Slash. Let's try this again with Wing Attack, since it is technically stronger, just to see what kind of damage we actually managed to do here. We do manage to get through, but with a couple of Sand Attacks on, and then we get a critical hit from this Ninetales and a couple of Tail Whips. We just couldn't land any Wing Attacks after one Sand Attack there, so yeah, this one still clearly isn't going to go. And while you might say, well, why not just go ahead and use something like Mega Drain? Well, Mega Drain just doesn't really give us any advantage here, because while yes, it would heal us in battle, we can also just heal in battle by using Leech Life, which is technically going to be the same amount of power and technically should be better given that we have a higher attack stat. So tale from the future here, I had played for about 2 hours in this one, only to find that I lost all of my save game file up to this point in the game. So I had to come back, replay the entire game to this point, and then try to progress in the game. So you might see that my stats are just a little bit different than what they were before. That's just because of these specific battles that I was taking. And now that we're back into this, we have to try to level up enough to beat Blaine and rival number 5. Now, the other thing that happened with this is that I actually recorded this all the way to the end of the game, only to find that I had not recorded with any audio. Apparently, OBS just decided to forget all of my audio settings, and after I had just played the entire game back to this point, it was a situation where I just didn't realize that the audio wasn't even recording, so I'm coming back as post-commentary Teo to comment on all of this for you. So as we can see, we just continue grinding against rando trainers, trying to gain extra levels. Once we get to level 60, we will try Blaney Boy again. So back at level 60, of course, against the Ninetales, I think there's nothing better than to go wing attack here. It's still a 3-hit KO range, and once we get a critical hit flamethrower, we're just dead. He can just destroy us because our special is so incredibly low. Still, I'm going to give this a couple more attempts just to see if it's possible if we don't get a critical hit flamethrower here. This time we get quick attack instead, and yet again, flamethrower just one-shots me. So I think we have to go confuse ray here on the first Ninetales, hoping that it hits itself in confusion. We get it to hit itself a couple times here, and then we get a tail whip, so that's not too bad. Now we make it to Rapidash, which goes growl, and that's one of the worst situations we can get because all of our moves are physical. We actually need our attack stat to deal decent damage. Still, it hits itself, so we do get our first shot at Arcanine here at level 60. We confuse it. It hits itself in confusion turn 1. We really want a critical hit here. It hits itself a second time even, and a third time, and now it goes reflect. And that allows us to get the victory on the 4th attempt there against Blaine at level 60. So is it consistent? No. An hour, 59 minutes, 36 seconds to get through. We're up to 131 optional battles and 38 resets, but we have gotten our 6th gym badge, and now we have no choice. We have to go back and fight rival number 5 to progress in the game. So I'm going to make my way straight back to Silphco and see if I can actually manage to beat him at this current level. But if not, we're going to be back to grinding against random trainers until we can get the levels that we need. He leads off with his Sand Slash, of course, and let's just see what Wing Attack does. It's appearing to be a 3 or 4 hit KO from this level. Still, we do manage to knock it out. We get to the Ninetales, which isn't particularly scary, and we should be able to get a 2-hitter here on this Pokemon after a crit. Now we have to deal with Cloyster, though, and this is the problem in this run. We have to confuse this Pokemon, but even then, if it hits Aurora Beam, we're basically dead. We're probably getting 2 or 3 hit KO'd by Aurora Beam here, if I have to guess. But let's just see this again. Maybe we can get better confusion luck on that Pokemon. So here, I think the strategy now is to confuse everything. We're also going to use Leech Life a little bit more in order to recover HP when we get damage. We want to get to Cloyster with as much HP as possible. With Ninetales, there's nothing to do but just go all in on the wing attack and just knock it out. But now Cloyster, let's confuse it, and let's just see if we can manage to survive. We see that Aurora Beam did less than half there. Now we can use Leech Life to heal a little bit, hoping that it hits itself once in confusion. We don't get the luck, so we simply go down. And after several more attempts, it's pretty clear that we're simply not getting through at this current level. So I'm just going to take this opportunity to clear out the rest of Silphco, getting as many levels as I possibly can, and we'll fight random overworld trainers as well until we get to level 63. So after grinding for a little bit, we are now at level 63. Let's see how this goes against the rival now. So here, once again, he leads off with Sand Slash. There's nothing really to do. I'm going to use Leech Life here. Leech Life is now a 3-hit KO, but we get Sand attacked once, and that basically is the end of this one, because if we miss even a single hit against Cloyster, we're probably just dead. We can still get through the Ninetales just fine as long as we manage to hit, but now against Cloyster, I'm going to go Leech Life just to heal up some HP, and this appears to be a 3-hit KO at this point with Leech Life, but then we get the attack drop. Aurora Beam is doing good damage, though not as much as it seemed to be doing before. So we actually do manage to get through Cloyster. We get to Kadabra. We need to land a Leech Life here. That's our only play. We actually managed to land the hit and get the 1-hit KO there, even with the attack drop. But now we have to get through Jolteon. I think the only play is to go Leech Life, Jolteon's basically only going to use Thundershock here because of its smart AI. This Thundershock didn't do that much to us though. We do have a lot of badge boosts going on with a couple attack drops and a couple defense drops plus the accuracy drop. We get it all the way down to 7 HP remaining, but we simply could not manage the hit. That was so close, I think we have to try this one again. But this time we get a significantly worse range on the first Sand Slash, and we've got the accuracy drop, and without all those extra badge boosts that we got from the accuracy drops plus defense drops, we don't deal enough damage there to be able to get through the Cloister, and we're taking a lot more damage from its special moves. So basically any run where we get a sand attack, I think we just have to reset after testing this a bunch of times. It just seems like it doesn't really work out. Still, I'm going to test this just to see if we can get a run where we get good accuracy luck against that Cloister, because if we can, and we just one-shot against the Kadabra, we should have a chance here. This time we managed to get through with no accuracy drops to the Cloister. I'm just going all in on Leech life here because if we can just survive, we will be able to get through. This time he potions, so we do knock out the Cloister with about half health remaining. We know we have the one-hit KO on Kadabra, and now on Jolteon, we have to see what Leech Life does here when we are not on lowered attack, but we just get paralyzed and then knocked out the next turn by a critical hit Thundershock, so we didn't even get to see the range. This time we get Cloister to hit itself in Confusion turn 1 and turn 2, and then he potions, so we actually get through Cloister on full health. We can one-shot the Kadabra. We're back to the Jolteon now. I'm going to Confuse Ray this time. It hits Thundershock, did about a third, but not too much. And now we see that Leech Life looks like it's just going to two-shot here. So we finally get the victory at level 63. It is not consistent by any means, but we should have easy victories now against Jesse and James and Giovanni. So let's just see how they go. Against Jesse and James, obviously Leech Life just one-shots the Weezing and the Arbok. And now against the Meowth, we can just go for Wing Attack and easily knock them out. Now it's time for Giovanni. Let's see how he goes. So Giovanni attempt number 1. I'm actually running low on Leech Life PP, so I'm just going to Wing Attack here against the Nidorino. It's a 2-hit KO on that Pokemon. It's going to be the same story here on the Persian, but we easily take it down. Now Leech Life is our only neutrally effective move against the Rhyhorn. So I'm going to use it, and we get a 3-hit range here. I'm just going to Wing Attack when it's on low health, though. We get to level 64 as the Nidoqueen comes out, and a critical hit Leech Life ends that fight. So Giovanni goes down on the first attempt, and we're finally ready to take our shot at Sabrina. Sabrina shouldn't be as hard as she normally would be for a Zubat, given the fact that we're using an 80 base power Leech Life here, and it's a super effective move. We should also be faster than the first Abra, so the question is just how many times does she flash us? Maybe we want to be flashed 1 or 2 times to give us a badge boost. We'll just have to see. Let's test this out. So Sabrina attempt number 1 as she leads off with the Abra. Obviously, we just go for Leech Life here. We outspeed, and that is a 1-hit KO. Now we've got the Kadabra. It goes for Recover turn 1. So Leech Life just destroys it. And now we've made it to Alakazam. We want to see anything other than Psychic. And after it reflects, we still did over half. So this looks like a 2-hit KO. She X defense, and that allows us to simply knock her out. So in 2 hours, 15 minutes, 59 seconds, we've gotten our 7th gym badge incredibly easily for a Zubat, and it's all because of that high power Leech Life. It's actually a check to Psychic type Pokemon, which shows that this move probably should have been buffed in Gen 1, so that Psychic types weren't just running roughshod over everything. We have reached this point with 150 optional battles and 45 resets, but with the 7th gym badge down, we can now go take on Giovanni, and this is actually a really interesting fight. Because we are a flying type, we're immune to his ground type moves. So we don't actually really have to worry about the Doug Trio. It can't actually damage a flying type Pokemon. The issue that we're going to have is that this is Pokemon Yellow, where he has the Persian that can deal neutral damage. Both of the Nidos know the move Thunder, and the final Rhydon knows the move Rock Slide, something that it didn't know in Pokemon Red and Blue. That means that all 3 of his last Pokemon are going to know a super effective move against us. So this might even be a spot where we have to learn the move Mega Drain, since it's our only super effective move against the Rhydon, and I expect that if it does hit a Rock Slide, it simply one-shots us. Still, we're not going to know until we test this out, so let's get into the first attempt against Giovanni. So Giovanni attempt number 1. This Dugtrio can do nothing other than sand attack us. That's the only thing we don't want to see is the sand attack. Otherwise, when it goes underground, we can just use something like wing attack and just two-shot this Pokemon. Out next, we get to the Persian as we get to level 65. Wing attack appears to be a 3-hit KO at this level, but he just guard specs and misses a Screech. We get 1 Fury Swipes, but that's really not too bad. Now on the Nidoqueen, Leech Life is super effective, so it is our strongest move. It hits Thunder and does massive damage, but it looks like we can get a 2-hit KO range there. Now onto the Nidoking, it's also going to want to use Thunder, and it critical hits to one-shot me. So this is clearly not going to be consistent by any means, but it might be possible to get to Rhydon at this point, and maybe we just need to slap on a Mega Drain in order to get through that Pokemon. So I'm not going to waste any time. I'm going to go ahead and learn Mega Drain. I think we learn it over Bite. We haven't really been using Bite strats very much, mostly Wing Attack and Leech Life. So let's just see how this goes and if we can actually get to the Rhydon at this point. This time we get a Slash from the Persian though, which does massive damage and basically guarantees that we're going down because it can just critical hit us after that with the Fury Swipes. Persian has a massive crit chance in Gen 1. The third attempt, we even get sand attacked here, so while we do get a slight boost to our attack stat and Persian is missing everything up to this point, it's not looking very good that we're actually going to get through this. A single sand attack basically ends us, and then Persian even double teams to add insult to injury. We do take it down, but we're on very low health as we go to the Nidoqueen, and we'd have to hit everything here. So while we do about half damage, Thunder just simply ends us. A couple attempts later, we do make it to Nidoking though, and we get a guard spec, so we knock that Pokemon out, giving us our first shot at Rhydon. Let's see what Mega Drain does here. Keeping in mind, he could even just guard spec against us. Here, Mega Drain does slightly over half. We heal up, but of course, Rock Slide just one-shots us because of this Rhydon's massive 157 attack stat. So it's pretty clear that without a guard spec, which is kind of luck-based, we're not going to be able to get through this one at this point. So at this point, I decided I just need to take some more optional battles. Now, because we are already getting to level 65 in that battle, I decided that it made sense to just level up to level 68. The next damage rounding threshold after that, because otherwise we're expecting basically the same results as we were getting before since Dugtrio never damages us anyway. So let's just grind a few more random trainers until we get to that point. Now you might be asking, why not just blackout grind against Giovanni? Well, it's actually beneficial here to fight these rando trainers to get more stat experience. Basically, every time we knock out a Pokemon, we are adding their stats onto the stat experience of our Zubat. And this actually makes it beneficial to fight more weaker trainers because we get more stat experience for the same number of levels. And since we're not likely to just easily get through anytime soon, the extra stat XP could make a massive difference. So now back at level 68, let's see how this fight goes now. We can do basically anything against the Dugtrio, and we're just hoping not to get that sand attack. We take it out nice and easily. Now let's see Persian. Leech Life here is appearing to be a 3-hit KO. I think this is the best play. We should just recover as much HP as we can, but a couple critical hit slashes are enough to knock us out even after we heal a little bit. We're going to need much better luck than that. So here I'm just taking an auto reset any time that I get a single sand attack, since I know that that's very likely to just be the end of the run. But this time we do manage to get through Persian. We do have a Screech on, so that is lowering our defense stat. It probably doesn't actually matter against the Rhydon though. So I'm just going to Confuse Ray on the Nidoqueen. It hits itself once in confusion. Now he misses a Thunder, so we easily knock him out. The Nidoking is a 2-hitter, but as long as it doesn't crit, we're guaranteed to just get through this Pokemon in 2 hits. That brings us back to Rhydon, where I'm going to confuse it. He goes Guard Spec turn 1. Now we go for the Mega Drain, and he actually manages to move and hit us with that Rock Slide. This is the thing. If he does not manage to move, or if we knew that he was going to use the Guard Spec, we could have just 2-shot there and easily won. So I'm going to take this a few more times to see if I can get back there and get the same level of luck. But it's pretty clear after more attempts that that was a pretty lucky run overall, so I think it just makes sense to go take more optional battles at this point in order to try to at least get maybe a range where we can actually survive one hit from that rock slide on full health. Otherwise, we're going to be grinding here for a very long time. So now back to Giovanni at level 70. We don't quite one-shot the Doug trio, but we're getting very close at this point. Against the Persian, it screeches, we leech life, and the second hit, thanks to the badge boost, is enough to two-shot that Pokemon. Now I'm just going to go all in against the Nidoqueen. She hits a Thunder and gets a critical hit, knocking us out. Still, we only need like one guard spec there from the two Nidos to guarantee that we just get through them. So I'm going to kind of grind this one out. So back to Nidoqueen on full health. I'm going to Confuse Ray this time. We get a Thunder miss, which is perfect. Then she hits herself in confusion, so we just knock her out the next turn. Nidoking is out next. We're going to get the 2-hit KO no matter what, as long as it doesn't crit. And we manage to finally knock that Pokemon out. We're back to the Rhydon, where let's just see the Mega Drain. It once again does not one-shot here, but we get the guard spec. So we finally managed to win against Giovanni at level 70. Obviously, we could have gotten the same luck at a lower level, but hey, we'll take it. We have defeated the 8 Kanto gym leaders, and hey, we were probably going to need extra levels for Lorelei later on anyway. So after 2 hours, 37 minutes, and 21 seconds, we have defeated the 8 Kanto gym leaders. We're up to 190 optional battles and 59 resets, and we've added on only one TM, which is that Mega Drain. Still, it's not looking pretty as we get ready to go to the league. We still have to beat rival number 6 and then make our way to Lorelei, who could arguably be the single hardest trainer in the entire game for this Zubat, considering that everything on our team here uses ice and psychic type moves in Pokemon Yellow. We could be in some serious trouble. For now though, we have to defeat rival number 6, and there are no guarantees this is going to be an easy fight, so let's get into it and find out. So rival 6 attempt number 1 on the Sandslash. I think the play is to go Mega Drain because it has lower special. We did about half. We take a massive slash, but we knock it out the next turn. Now on Execute, we have a free win with the Leech Life. It's 4 times super effective. That brings out Ninetales, where we can go for anything, but I think that the wing attack is the play. It's a 2-hit KO with that. We get to level 71 as Cloyster comes out. I'm going to go Mega Drain here since it has lower special, but this is looking like a 3-hit KO. We get Aurora Beam turn 1 though, and Aurora Beam turn 2 gets a critical hit, but we still managed to knock that Pokemon out. Now to the Kadabra, Leech Life one-shots. We're on 58 HP as we go to the final Jolteon. We have to confuse it. It misses Thunder. It's only going to go Thunder or Thunder Wave here, so it does have a 30% chance to miss. Now I think we just have to go Leech Life. The Jolteon hits itself in confusion, and we get a critical hit, taking it to low health, and he uses a potion, giving us the free victory. The rival clearly just didn't want to win that fight, and we are now able to move on to the Pokemon League. Granted, he might have just been glazing us a little bit, like making it look like we're stronger than we actually are, so that we'll go into Lorelei overly confident, because yeah, this is probably not going to be a very easy run through the league if I have to guess. Drop your comments down below of what level you think we're going to have to get to actually be able to beat the champion at the end. I'm expecting to gain quite a few levels here. Now I will make my way over to the power plant and get the extra rare candy. So we'll get 2 more as we go through here. We also have the rare candy from the SSN because we were taking optional battles. So we'll have 12 rare candies in the bag. We could get all the way up to level 83 at this point without grinding any more levels. The only reason we might want to take more battles is again for that stat experience, and we probably just have to grind until we can at least kind of reliably beat Lorelei. Once we get through her, I think that Bruno's not going to be bad. Agatha will be random, but we have all the tools that we need to beat her. Lance could be a nightmare in this one, given that Leech Life will not work against most of his Pokemon. They will resist the move, but then the champion might not be too bad. We're just going to have to see. So since I could be grinding for quite a while, I'm just going to buy as many full restores as I possibly can here so that we can get into the blackout grind and hopefully just be able to heal as many times as possible. I'm also going to put all of my other Pokemon into the PC because I expect to just blackout here. There aren't that many overworld trainers left at this point, and most of them are incredibly low level, so there's not really any point to going out and fighting them. So it's time for Lorelei. Let's see if we can get this to go. So Lorelei attempt number 1, I'm going to come in without any rare candies just to see what the ranges look like against these Pokemon. First off, on the Dugong, it has lower defense than special, so I think we have to go for a physical move. Let's just see what Wing Attack does here. Wing Attack appears to be maybe a 3-hit KO, but Aurora Beam did over half on the first hit. Now, she is very likely to use Rest on turn 2 because of the way her AI works, but in this one, 2 Aurora Beams just destroys us. So this time instead, I'm going to confuse the Dugong. We managed to get the first turn with no damage. It hits itself in confusion. Wing Attack again. It hits itself again. That allows us to simply get through the first Pokemon. We're on to the Cloyster where Mega Drain does less than half, and then Ice Beam does like 75% to us. So we're going to need some really good confusion luck here to get through this Pokemon. Once it snaps out of confusion and hits another Ice Beam, we are done. So I think we need more levels to get through this. Check. Yeah. But the main point here is that it doesn't even look like we're close to being able to get through. So I think this is a spot where it makes more sense to just blackout grind over and over and over against Lorelei than to slam all the rare candies, especially because I expect later trainers to be more difficult. So I'm just going to take this opportunity to knock out at least the Dugong over and over again and gain experience. And let's see what level we can finally actually see the Lapras for the first time. The next attempt, we actually get Dugong to go to sleep with Rest, and we knock it out in 3 hits. Now we confuse the Cloyster. It hits itself in confusion. We hit Mega Drain and get a crit this time, and that allows us to get through that Pokemon on full HP. Now we get to see Slowbro. Let's see the range with Leech Life. It's looking like a 2-hit KO, but this Pokemon will either go for Amnesia or Psychic against us. And if it just goes Amnesia and Super Potions, we win. Jinx is a 1-hitter with Leech Life at our current level, level 72. So now we're to the Lapras for the first time. I'm going to confuse it. It doesn't hit itself in confusion though, and Blizzard one-shots. We're going to need really good confusion luck there, but I'm just going to keep all that XP so that we can level up even more and try to get back there again. At level 70, not that one. Back again at level 74. We've been blackout grinding for a hot minute here. She does use the Rest this time, so we're gonna get through the Dugong just fine. We'll confuse Cloyster yet again. It hits itself in confusion once and a second time even, so we knock it out. We're back to the Slowbro, who appears to just be a 2-hit KO with Leech Life now. We just barely missed the range, but still 2 Amnesias is all we need. Jinx we know is completely free, so at level 74 we're back to Lapras again. We can confuse this Pokemon. It hits itself in confusion this time. Because it has lower defense than special, I'm going to use Leech Life since Leech Life and Mega Drain are effectively the same. But here, let's just see what Wing Attack does. It looks like it would have been a 4-hit KO, but we just barely survive against that Blizzard. So this is giving me a little more hope that if we just get it to hit itself a couple times in confusion, we could win. It knocks us out on this attempt, but still, this is looking a little bit closer. So now we're back here at level 75. Once again, we confuse the Cloyster. It hits itself in confusion once, so we do manage to knock it out in spite of getting hit by an Ice Beam. Slowbro once again goes Amnesia, giving us the free victory, and Jinx guarantees we'll get to the Lapras on full health. So this time we confuse Ray it. It hits itself in confusion turn 1. We're going to go for the Wing Attack. It hits itself in confusion turn 2. Let's just keep attacking and we get a crit. That allows us to finally beat Lorelei at level 75. This fight is definitely not consistent, but it is possible to win at this level with good confusion luck. And with that, we're able to now move on to Bruno. And I don't expect Bruno to be hard at all. I think we're going to completely crush him. We've got perfect moves for his entire team. So let's just heal up real quick and get into this fight. So Bruno attempt number 1, we just Mega Drain on the Onix. That's a 1-hit KO. For the Hitmonchan, Wing Attack, 1-shots. Hitmonlee, Wing Attack, also 1-shots. We're back to the second Onix, which is just a single hit with the Mega Drain. And now the Machamp, Wing Attack, 1-hit KO. Yeah, it turns out Bruno never stood a chance against this Zubat. If even a Zubat is completely destroying him, albeit at a very high level, that tells us that basically everything beats Bruno. But now we have to take on Agatha. This one could be really random. I think we have all the tools that we need, so let's just get into it and find out if we can win. So Agatha attempt number 1 here against the Gengar. I'm just going to go wing attack. Obviously, we want to use a physical move here, and we get a critical hit to one-shot. That brings out the Golbat, where we should just stick with wing attack. Another crit, but this Pokemon normally would be a 3-hit KO from the looks of things. We hit ourselves once in confusion and she super potions, but we still knocked that one out. We critical hit against the Haunter, one-shotting that Pokemon. Leech Life is the best play for Arbok since it's super effective against poison in this gen, so we just 2-shot there after a super potion. We get Psychic from the final Gengar, and the crit one-shots us. Now, I'm not sure if we get one-shot by anything other than a critical hit, and it's only a 1 in 4 chance that Gengar uses Psychic here. She just attacks completely randomly. If she just tries to use Dream Eater while we're awake, we might even be able to just one-hit KO back. So we've got to test this out a little bit more. The next attempt, we're back to the Gengar, but we can see it's a 2-hit KO without the crit here. Still, we get confused, but we knock it out in 2 hits. We hit ourselves in confusion the first turn from Golbat, but fortunately, Golbat is just trying to use moves that cannot affect us. We can't be affected by poison, nor can we be affected by confusion when we're already confused. It does use a really strong wing attack, but we still managed to get through right there. Now on lower health, I'm going to use Leech Life against the Haunter in order to heal up some HP. We get a 2-hit KO even after the super potion. Arbok once again is just a simple 2-hitter to knock out. That brings out the Gengar. It hits Hypnosis this time, and then Psychic does not one-shot. So it's important to know that as long as we don't get that crit, the Psychic will not one-shot against us. We will have a chance to get through this one. Still, Agatha's just going to be incredibly random no matter what we do, so we're just going to have to kind of hope for the luck to get through. The third attempt, we get paralyzed, which obviously would stop her from being able to use Hypnosis. So if we can get to the final Gengar in this one, it will be better than the previous runs, I think. But being slower, we definitely need to use more confusion here in order to get through, because otherwise we're just likely to lose due to our paralysis. Still, we managed to get through the first couple Pokemon. Haunter tries to Dream Eater while we're awake and then licks us, but we just managed to heal up a couple turns. Now the Arbok is incredibly smart, using Wrap against us when we're paralyzed, but she also swaps to the final Gengar. We hit ourselves in confusion, but then we confuse it, and we're both confused. We knock ourselves out in confusion. That could have been our best shot at actually winning against that Pokemon. Next attempt, I'm just going to use Leech Life on the Gengar now that I know that it's a 2-hitter. And because we can just recover HP, we get a good range on the Golbat, knocking it out in 2 with a crit. And I'm just basically going to Leech Life everything from here in order to heal HP. And this time we managed to get back to the final Gengar with no status. It puts us to sleep. We get hit by the Psychic, and it Psychics again. Let's see if the 5th time is the charm here. We get a Mega Drain from the Gengar, which obviously means nothing. Then she swaps to Golbat even on really low health, and that's going to guarantee that we can just knock out that first Gengar really easily when she brings it back out. On full health, we can just wing attack against Haunter. It's not quite a one-hitter, but now Leech Life on the Arbok. Yet again, we'll get the easy 2-hit KO. Haunter will go down nice and easy at this point. Let's see if we can finally get through the final Gengar. Hypnosis misses 40% of the time, and Psychic is not a one-hitter. It manages to hit the Psychic and get a special drop. I'm going to Leech Life here. Obviously, another Psychic, even from full health, would knock us out at this point, but we do over half with the Leech Life. It hits itself in confusion, and finally, Agatha gives us the victory. So we're able to move on to Lancey Boy at level 76 after the level up. And at this point, we really have to think about dropping all the rare candies. We don't have good moves, and while we could learn like Double Edge here, I don't think it gives us that much of an advantage given the recoil. And that's the only neutrally effective move that we could really learn to try to hit the Dragonite. Normally in a solo run, people are using overpowered TMs, things like Mimic or Rest in order to get through here. Obviously, Mimic strats are really good. You just mimic the Ice Beam from the second Dragonair. Or if you're playing Pokemon Red and Blue, the Dragonairs and Dragonite won't even attack a poison type Pokemon. They'll just spam agility and barrier. Here though, we have to find a strategy that will get us through his Pokemon. So Lancy Boy attempt number 1. Let's see what we do against this Gyarados. I'm going to confuse it first. Hydro Pump does over half when it does hit. Mega Drain doesn't do that much either, even though it's neutrally effective. It's only 40 base power here. So we need a lot of turns of Gyarados hitting itself in confusion, and Wing Attack doesn't seem to be doing that much more. We do manage to knock out the Gyarados, allowing us to get to the first Dragonair, but this is Pokemon Yellow, where the Dragonair knows Thunderbolt and Thunder Wave, both of which are kind of bad for our Pokemon. If we get paralyzed, I think it's a guaranteed loss, and Thunderbolt might just knock us out. Here we get paralyzed. We have confused the Dragonair, so maybe we have a chance, but no, a critical hit Thunderbolt just knocks us out. So at this point, I think we should try all of the rare candies, but I'm going to save before using them, because if it turns out that even after using the rare candies, this fight isn't going, I'm just going to go back to the start of the league and just grind levels again, because that's going to be more efficient and get a stat experience. And hopefully by getting to a higher level, we can eventually manage to win this fight. Here, we can get up to level 88 though, and that's going to get us through quite a few damage rounding thresholds here, so maybe it gives us a chance. Let's get into it and just see if this actually works. So here at level 88, it looks like we did about half with the first Wing Attack here against the Gyarados. We managed to knock it out in 3 hits in the end. Now, Wing Attack does about 75% against the Dragonair. A critical hit will one-shot there. We don't have a great crit rate with our Zubat, only about a 10% chance. Better than later gens, but still not great here. I think we're going to have to use the Confuse Ray strats. This time we confuse the Gyarados and get through with no damage taken, but we've got to avoid that Thunder Wave. Even with confusion on, the Dragonair still manages to hit the Thunder Wave and Thunderbolt. Thunderbolt doesn't do that much. We can survive a couple hits there, but it's not great as we go to the second Dragonair. We're just getting hit by the Ice Beam, and we're basically going to go down. It hits itself once in confusion and even twice, so we get to see the Aerodactyl, but now anything Aerodactyl does, I guarantee, just one-shots us, and we don't have any strong moves here. Everything that we have is resisted, so Aerodactyl simply takes us down. We're going to have to get to Aerodactyl on really good HP to have any shot of actually winning this fight. Still, it looks like we're getting kind of close. If we could get through maybe without paralysis, we could have a chance here. So I'm really just going to go for the Confuse Ray strats on this first Dragonair and hope that it doesn't land the Thunder Wave. Of course, it just has to land it every single time, it seems. So we're simply going down, I think, on this one. We get to the second Dragonair on better HP, but in the end, it just doesn't matter. We lose. A few attempts later, we do manage to get to the Aerodactyl on green health with no paralysis. It hits Fly and gets a critical hit on us the first turn. I'm going Mega Drain since it does have lower special, and Wing Attack still does really good damage, and Hyper Beam knocks us out. It's pretty clear that we're simply not getting through Aerodactyl at this level, at least not without God tier confusion luck. So I think we have to go back through the league and try to gain more levels. And here, as we get back to Agatha, it's still not consistent. We took a couple resets on Lorelei, but we are actually able to beat Agatha on the first attempt when we come back. So we get to level 89 as we're ready to go back to Lance. This is the problem with grinding more levels. We're in the medium fast level up group and we're getting to an incredibly high level. So the Elite Four doesn't actually level us up that much, but let's see if one additional level is enough to make any difference in this fight. So now with Wing Attack, we're still doing about half to the Gyarados. He hyper potions here, but he's only using Dragon Rage in this one, so he's not doing that much damage. Still, it does build up quite a bit. We managed to get to the first Dragonair though. It Thunderbolts this time, and that's all we need. We just need to not get paralyzed there. At this point, I'm just going to go all in on attack against the rest of the team. We managed to get back to the Aerodactyl at level 90. It Wing Attacks. I'm going to confuse it and now go for the Mega Drain to heal up a little bit of HP. It hits itself in confusion once, and it hits itself in confusion again. We get our first shot at the Dragonite. Now, Dragonite will only use Blizzard or Thunder here. Thunder is what we want. It has a 30% chance to miss. We confuse it. It hits itself in confusion. We go for Wing Attack. It hits itself in confusion again. Wing Attack ends it at level 90. We do, in fact, manage to beat Lancy Boy That was not pretty. That was definitely luck-based, but we do make it back to the champion. So let's just see if we can manage to beat him on the first attempt. We know we've got enough moves for the first 3 Pokemon. The question is that Cloyster and the Jolteon. If we can manage to get to Cloyster on full health and knock it out reasonably efficiently, we might just have a shot on this one. So champion attempt number 1 against the Sandslash. I think Mega Drain is the only play, and it appears to be a 2-hit KO. We get slashed, but I don't think that even matters. We just 2-shot that Pokemon. Alakazam is out next, and the obvious play is the Leech Life. And we get the 1-hit KO. So we get a heal up all the way to full HP. Now Exeggutor is 4 times weak to Leech Life, so we simply use that move in 1 shot. 80 base power Leech Life is putting in some serious work here. That brings out the Cloyster next. Here, I'm going to see what Mega Drain does. It does about half. We get the Ice Beam, which does massive damage. Oh, we just barely missed the range on the next hit. If we confuse it for 1 turn, or maybe get a better roll, we should be able to knock out this Pokemon in just a couple turns. So rival attempt number 2 here, we already know that basically nothing the Sandslash can do really matters. Even the critical hit slash will not deal enough damage to affect anything. Alakazam once again is a 1-hitter, same for the Exeggutor. So now it's time for Cloyster. I'm going to Confuse Ray. We need it to hit itself in confusion. It Ice Beams turn 1, Mega Drain, and it goes Aurora Beam this time. That's actually good. It does less damage when it does Aurora Beam, but it just doesn't hit itself in confusion. So we still go down to an Ice Beam and 2 Aurora Beams. Let's see if the 3rd time is the charm here. So 3rd attempt, same thing on the first 3 Pokemon. They're complete non-factors at level 90 for this Zubat, owing entirely to our boosted power moves. Now against Cloyster, we confuse it. It hits Aurora Beam turn 1 and gets an attack drop that's kind of bad, but then it does hit itself in confusion, so we should be able to knock it out with Mega Drain. Sure enough, we do. That brings out the Ninetales, but like I said, 1 attack drop is kind of bad. This is probably a 2-hit KO normally, but it looks like a 3-hitter after the attack drop with Wing Attack. Still, we are going to be able to knock it out. We are confused going to the final Jolteon. It's either going to go Thunder or Thunder Wave. So we're really hoping for Thunder and that 30% chance to miss. Instead, it hits itself in confusion turn 1, and we get a critical hit Leech Life to knock it out. Of course, crits in Gen 1 ignore stat drops, so that was incredibly lucky. A 10% chance approximately, and in 3 hours, 31 minutes, and 9 seconds, we have defeated the champion. But it was not pretty. We had to get to level 90, and our score absolutely tanked as we went through that run. We ended up with 80 resets and 212 optional battles in order to beat the entire game. We only used 1 TM, which was Mega Drain. We did not go for overpowered TMs, so that's incredibly interesting. Zubat actually goes from being like completely terrible and having no moves to being terrible but having meh moves at the end. So now as our rival complains that he never made any mistakes raising his Pokemon, we're going to say, actually, you did. You failed to give your Pokemon this overpowered Leech Life and Wing Attack. And as his grandfather comes to chastise him for the fact that he clearly didn't study later gens of the game, we're going to get registered in the Hall of Fame with our good bat, and we have done it. Anyway, I just want to give a massive thank you to everybody who watches the videos and the channel members especially for their monthly support. We are getting very close to my goal of being a full-time PokeTuber, so if you'd like to support me in that, consider watching one more video at the end of this one. Perhaps the time that I beat the game with a Golbat for a little bit of reference, since it's kind of connected to this one. And if you'd really like to support, consider joining that channel membership. And with that, I hope you guys enjoyed this one. I will see you in the next one later. No, but actually, for people who stick around to the end of the video, you are legendary. And there's one last thing I think we actually need to do. We need to see what the range is with Leech Life when it's this overpowered on a Zubat against the final Mewtwo. Mewtwo, of course, is level 70. It is the strongest Pokemon we could fight, and I think a single Psychic will simply one-shot us, but I just want to see what kind of range we actually get here. Obviously, Barrier and Recover could also complicate things, but let's just see how this goes. So Mewtwo attempt number 1. Let's go for Leech Life here. We can see that all of Mewtwo's stats at level 70 are so much higher than ours with our Zubat, and a single Psychic just one-shots us from full health. No critical hits necessary. Mewtwo still just destroys Zubat. So this time it goes Recover instead. So on the second attempt, we get to use a Leech Life. It did nearly half. Looks like it's probably a 3-hitter from this range. Plus he's using Recover, but then we get a crit. So if we can just land a couple more hits, we might be able to win. And Mewtwo goes Swift, the biggest mistake of this Pokemon, allowing us to simply get the victory. So in the end, it's only a 3-hitter to beat Mewtwo at this level with Leech Life. Imagine something like a Parasect getting here without any type weaknesses could actually be pretty tough in that battle. Anyway, once again, appreciate you guys for being here. I will see you in the next one. Later.